Hi, everyone. Welcome back. This week, I have Charlie with us with Weekend Club. I'm super pumped to share with you more about his business. With that said, Charlie, I wanted to welcome you to the Tony Shap Show.
Great to be here, Tony. Thanks for having me on.
Right? Let's just kick it off right into the first question. What is your one word open?
Community.
Great, great. I love it. And which ties into Weekend Club, right? So let's go right into it. So talk to us about your business. Tell us what it's all about and who you work with and all that good stuff.
Yeah, so start with a bit about our mission. So we're on a mission to make the bootstrapper journey easier to by helping founders by helping them connect, share knowledge, and enjoy the ride more. So basically, help each other give feedback and just make the arduous journey of being a bootstrapper a lot easier. So the way that we do that is we have a remote community for bootstrap founders called Weekend Club, and so imagine you're a internet entrepreneur, whether you're building a SaaS, a podcast, a newsletter, a community. You have a day job, but you are building your side hustle on the weekend, usually on a Saturday or a Sunday. So we've created a remote co-working community for people like you. So it's like a one-day kind of sprint where you can meet founders, stay productive, give each other feedback and that kind of thing. So yeah, we do that every week in 2 time zones. And in a nutshell, that's Weekend Club.
Excellent. And I've been to Indie Hacker before at the meetups and stuff like that, which is locally and all that good stuff. Are you virtual or are you local? How does that work? Locally, or how does that work?
Yeah, so we're now just remote. But funnily enough, we started out in person. So I was running London, UK-based indie hacker meetups. It's called Indie Beers. It's now Indie London. And after a while, people started saying, hey, let's not just kind of go for drinks, but let's actually kind of hack on our projects on weekends in the same place. And not like a hackathon. It was more kind of work on our own stuff and then kind of talk to each other and help each other. So originally it was in person, and then obviously after COVID went remote. But this summer we're probably going to bring back some in-person events as well.
That's really awesome. How did you come up with the name Weekend Club? I mean, it makes sense. It's so in alignment with what you do, but when did you have that moment and your other names you thought about and then you finalized it on this?
It's a weird one. It didn't really take much like debate. Like it so I kind of came up with that like instantly. Once I was talking to one of um our Weekend Club members, Will Klopp. He runs a this awesome Slack app called Simple Poll, and we were just talking about the idea of Weekend Club, and the name just pops into my head instantly, if I'm honest. It doesn't always happen. Other ideas I've had, it takes a while to think of a name, but it just kind of came instantly. And I think the kind of style of having club as part of your name is a bit more common now. I'm not saying I started the trend, but it was just less common back then. Yeah, so it just kind of popped into my head because I mean, obviously it was on a weekend, and the club just makes it sound a bit more fun. I didn't want it to be too serious. Like obviously it's partially serious, but it's also got to be fun as well.
That's really awesome. When did you have that aha moment and you saw the breakthrough and said, okay, there's definitely a need? Or if there was not a need, you said, hey, why don't we create this to see if it works? What was going through your head? What was the thought process? And what was
Yeah,
the execution like, Charlie?
yeah. So while I was running these meetups, which were like once a month, there's maybe like 3 occasions where people told me, "Oh, wouldn't it be cool if we could all kind of work on our projects like in the same room together?" And after the third time that happened with, Will that I just mentioned, I was like, okay, like let's actually try this out. So I created like an MVP of this. Obviously, it's an in-person event. It's not the same as like a kind of making an app or a SaaS or whatever. But I did a landing page, posted it to a mailing list and my Twitter. We've got about 20 or 30 signups in the first kind of day. So I was like, okay, some people want to actually come to this. So we did a free session for the first one. Got in touch with a co-working space called Ministry of Startups, which unfortunately is now gone. and was like, okay, see if anyone turns up. So yeah, like 20 people turned up. So it was like full capacity and people seemed to enjoy it. So I sent a survey out afterwards about, what people liked, what people didn't like, would they be willing to pay money? And the results of that survey were good. So I was just like, you know what, maybe this is a thing. So after that, I sent out a Stripe link or a checkout page link. I had about 15 paid signups. And so I was just like, okay, people obviously want to keep coming back to this. So kind of went from there. And since then, it's just been evolving, to a large part due to COVID, but like in other ways, it's been evolving as well.
Absolutely. From your experience, are you seeing people, showing up and trying to come up with the idea, or do they already have the idea? They want to get feedback, or
Mhm.
is it the third part where they're live and strong and they're asking for, hey, what's the next, what's some growth hacking that I could do to take it to the next level? So is it like, so again, is it just like, hey, what should I do? Or here's what I got. Does it sound good? Or this is what I got. How could I take it to the next level? What do you see as a common trend with your members?
Yeah, it's a good question. So it's not just one of those things, it's kind of all of those things. So we've got members who have very advanced, like, full time on their businesses, like Sabo, who runs V.io. I think they're on $4 million ARR, something like that. You've got people who are they have some revenue, but maybe they're not completely living off their business just yet, but it's going really well. So it's like Christina, who runs Content UK. And you've got people who are just starting out as well. This is probably maybe the most common, people who have an idea or they've just built something, but they still have a day job and they're just still building it, kind of thing. So that's probably, yeah, I'd say that's maybe 50% of people are just starting out building it. 25% have revenue but are growing it, and 25% who are just like already kind of full time, living off their project.
Awesome. How about a recent win? Can you share with our audience something that recently happened? You may have mentioned it partially a second ago, but tell us about a recent win that you experienced with Weekend Club. And also, what did you learn from it, Charlie?
Yeah, a recent win was, so we've been experimenting with a new format that isn't just on the weekend. Because so I realized recently that about one third, maybe, yeah, so maybe it's actually one third of our members are working on their project full time, so not just on the weekends. So I felt like we needed to cater to those people more, because once you're full time on your project, you don't always want to work on the weekend anymore. It's now your kind of 9 to 5, right? So we've been experimenting with a new kind of it's code name Weekday Club, where it's like kind of Monday to Friday events sort of thing. It's like a remote co-working space, and I think that's a recent win because, as an experiment, it's been going well. It's well attended. It's getting good feedback. We're kind of consistently improving it. So yeah, I would say that is the win. And all I've learned is like, you know, again, it reiterated the power of running experiments, and testing things and trying new things. And because if we hadn't come from the approach of trying to test this, then we may never have done it. And I definitely think it's a good thing.
Awesome. How about a recent failure, something that just happened? And hey, so tell us what failure means to you and give us one experience of a failure. And also, how did you pull out of it? What was your learning experience from it?
Yeah. So, I mean, if you ask my like common definition of a failure, I think it's when something bad happens, but you don't learn anything from it. So in that sense, like very few things like are failures. But to answer your question, like I think, um, so we had a few more churns than we've had before recently. So in the last month, we had 3 churns, I believe, and the most we've ever had in 1 month is one of them. So yeah, maybe that's a failure. But I think we learned some stuff from it. The main reason is just because people are coming out of COVID, people are going into the summer. Some people kind of maybe don't want to work on their projects on Saturdays for a while, which is completely understandable. So yeah, I'll probably say that. It's important to keep on top of these things and kind of understand the reasons for them and improve things. So yeah, definitely keeping an eye on stuff like that.
Awesome. So now that you have, you're involved with the group, and do you moderate, or this is just an open dialogue like when it goes through and people start talking?
Yeah, so I mean, the way it works is every Saturday we have two co-working sessions per Saturday. So it's 10 a.m. till 5 p.m. on both UK time (GMT) and also US time, so Central Time. And if you imagine you're attending, so it's a 10 a.m. stand up where you'll meet other founders and say, I'm going to get this done today. So it's a good way to kind of start the day, add structure, and kind of commit to something. Halfway through the day, about 1 p.m., we have an office hours session or a Q&A. But office hours is normally where you kind of say you're having a problem, like, hey, my landing page is not converting. What do you all think? And you share that and get feedback from the community. So it's a good way of getting input from other founders. And then you work towards the retrospective at the end of the day around 5 p.m. And that's where you say, this is what you got done today. And that's the accountability side of things. And you can demo something that you've built as well. So
Awesome.
I run some of these sessions, but our members also run some sessions. So we've got three members, um, Dan Izaza, Abhishek Kumar, and James McKinvin, who all are members that run sessions as well, and I couldn't do it without them. And yeah, they're amazing, and that's how we managed to scale it a little bit beyond just me.
Awesome. Perfect. Now that you mentioned this to me and you said, good high level overview and how you do things. So share with me, now that you have that 30,000 overfoot view of everything, what's your number one advice that you could give to someone that's just starting up? Now that you're in there, you're in the conversation, you're moderating, you have this weekend club. If you could give people listening to this right now one advice, what would you say, Charlie?
Yeah, I would say that's just to start small. Don't worry about getting like 1,000-person community. Like your number one goal is to get like a group chat of 10 people that's really active and that people really enjoy. Because if you can get to that, then it's much easier to kind of grow it into something bigger. Whereas if you optimize just for growth at all costs, you're probably going to ignore the quality of the conversations and the experience. So yeah, absolutely optimize to start small and with quality, and then take it from there, basically.
Beautiful. And if you could go back in time and tell the 21-year-old Charlie, one advice, what would you give yourself if you're 21 years old?
I think maybe to trust your instincts more. I used to be in a different industry. I used to work in the ad industry, and I had a good time in the ad industry. I don't, you know, like talk down on it, but I had an instinct early on that I wanted to be more in the kind of like technology and community sort of industry, and I kind of ignored it because I read something that said, "Oh, like it's too late to kind of join this now," which is, I know it sounds insane now, but at the time it was actually written in Wired magazine. And yeah, so I would just say to trust your instincts more.
That's beautiful. And what's that one question that you would hope for me to ask, but I didn't ask you, Charlie? What would that be?
Maybe what's in store for the future in the next year or so? Do you want me to answer
That would be
that?
great. Yeah. What's in store for the future for next year or so?
So yeah. So well, I still work 3 days a week. It's a job I really enjoy, but later in the year I want to go full time and weekend club first of all. Um, Coming out of COVID, for a lot of community builders, kind of went to online community building like during COVID, and that's when I learned a lot of the craft sort of thing. But there's going to be a lot more kind of in-person events as well in the next year. Like I'm going to definitely keep the remote stuff, like that's not going away, but also adding in some in-person events. And I think I'd like to launch a real kind of co-working space in London, purely for bootstrappers. So I think those are a few things I'd like to do in the next year.
Awesome. And can you give out your website address for people who are more, they want to find out more information? Where can they go?
Yeah, for sure. So if you're interested, check out weekendclub.co and sign up. And yeah, we do 30-day free trials. So yeah, be very happy to have you if you want to check us out.
Awesome. And if you could sign us off with a one word close and why, that would be awesome.
Um, Friends, because at the end of the day, communities are just about helping people kind of build connections and make friends.
Awesome, Charlie. Thank you very much for coming on to the show. Looking forward to speaking with you soon.
Awesome. Thanks for having me on, man.